Hello, children. Today, let us learn the lesson Quality from the text Honeycomb. The lesson tells us the story of the Gessler brothers, who were shoemakers. Although the Gesslers made the best boots in London, their business gradually fell because they were unable to compete with the big companies around them. These companies earned their customers not through quality of their work but by advertising. And so, this lesson is all about the hard work, honesty, and commitment of the Gessler brothers. When new factories emerged, it affected the business of the Gessler brothers and they die. It is also important for us to understand how industrialization took away the bread and butter of artisans and craftsmen and those who loved doing their work. Now let us understand the lesson. The story starts with the description of a boot shop. On top was the nameplate Gessler Brothers and a few shoes displayed on the window. They made shoes on order. The narrator then narrates one of his meetings with Mr. Gessler. He says it has not been possible for him to visit the shop very often because the shoes that Mr. Gessler made lasted very long and they were the best of their kind. One day the narrator went to Mr. Gessler to get a pair of Russian leather shoes. Mr. Gessler went upstairs and came back after some time holding a piece of fine golden Russian leather. After the narrator's approval, he told the narrator that he would get his shoes within a fortnight. Once, the narrator happened to visit Mr. Gessler's shop. He told him that the last pair of shoes that he had bought from him creaked. After a long pause, Mr. Gessler asked him to bring the shoes to him. He assured him that if he could not repair them, he would return his money. Another day, he went to Mr. Gessler's shop in order to place an order for a new pair of shoes, wearing a pair of shoes which he had bought due to some emergency from a big firm. Mr. Gessler at once recognized that the shoes were not made by him. He touched a particular spot on the narrator's shoes where it wasn't comfortable for the narrator. He expressed his bitterness at the large firms that attract customers through advertising and they sold inferior products. He also told the narrator how his business reduced every year and how at that moment he had no work at all. Hearing these words, the narrator ordered many pairs that lasted long. The narrator visited Mr. Gessler after many months. During this visit, he got a shock. When he entered the shop, he saw the younger Gessler brother who informed him of the elder Gessler's death. That day he ordered several pairs of shoes. It took him long to receive the boots, but the quality was better than the previous ones. Soon after that, the narrator left for abroad and returned after a year. The first shop he went to was the shop of Mr. Gessler. The narrator could not recognize him because he looked very old and aged. The narrator again at once placed a very big order because he understood that Mr. Gessler was having a difficult time. The narrator had to wait for quite some time to get his boots, but finally he got it and he found that the boots were perfect. A week later, The narrator thought of visiting Mr. Gessler. But when he went to the place where the shop was, the name plate was no longer there. The narrator was disturbed. He went into the shop and he was greeted by a young man with an English face. The narrator inquired about Mr. Gessler and got to know that he was no longer alive. He had died. The narrator was shocked to hear that. The young man explained that Gessler died from starvation. Mr. Gessler used to devote all his time for shoemaking, so much so that he used to forget about everything else. All the money went in the rent and leather. The lesson ends with both the men agreeing to the fact that the Gessler brothers made good boots. Thank you for watching this video. Like, share, subscribe and comment for suggestions.